So tonight we return to London in the midst of this week of activity, as most of our Cainite protagonists are off pursuing different ventures. But two of them have come together for a meeting early on in this week. Simon and Abel, you have both arrived for the meeting with Helen that you finally arranged to have, and you have made it in front of Helen's home, or at least the address she gave to Abel. Helen's estate is modest. You can see that she has a two-story wooden house on this plot filled with bushes and other greenery, metal fencing on the edge. On the level of grandeur and influence of a successful artisan, craftsman, or maybe a less successful merchant. And the wooden door bears a simple iron knocker. We turn to the two of you as you are just now meeting there outside.
We're meeting up there, or we went there together?
That's up to you. I'll leave that to either of you.
Let's say that we're meeting up there because Simon has yet to bitch at Abel.
What do we see when we turn to Abel as he makes it there?
Abel has taken on his normal appearance to an extent this evening to walk the streets amongst the kine. And knowing that he's supposed to meet Simon, waits at the beginning of the path leading up to the door of the house.
Alright, Simon, you see that Abel has arrived just ahead of you.
Simon unobfuscates himself some meters away so that Abel can see him coming, although his hood is drawn up still.
Glad you finally decided to come to your senses, mate.
Yeah, it was about time.
You have no idea what I'm talking about, do you?
9.
That disappearing act you pulled. She was expecting to talk to us and you were nowhere to be found. She doesn't like to be kept waiting.
There was other business I had to attend to. You know how it is, mein Bruder.
Ah, yes, well, good. You explain it to her then. After you.
Abel folds his arms into the sleeves of his robe and walks up the path to the door, knocking once with the iron knocker.
You wait a few minutes before the door creaks open, and you see again that Helen has donned her mask. You've actually never seen Helen without her mask, and so she appears as this simple-looking woman with long brown hair, and she peers out. Ah, good evening.
Gute Nacht, Helen.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming. Please, step inside. And she pulls the door open wider.
Abel enters. What does he see?
Simon is close on his heels.
Inside, you see a humble wooden interior with little decoration to it. It's more than the average cottage would have, and clearly has several rooms besides the hearth and bedchambers. Helen, after letting you open, takes a few steps inward and takes a seat nearby in a small wooden chair near one of these tables, and gestures to invite you both to sit.
Abel sits next to her. Or is she at the head of the table?
It's not a very elegant table. It's there isn't really a head. She's just sitting on one side of a table. Looks like they're sitting on both sides.
Abel sits next to Helen.
Simon is very used to tables like this, being from a common background. So he just saunters over to the end of the table and sort of perches himself on the edge. Simon asks if that's banana bread he smells. Just kidding.
We'll pause for a moment here. Take a quick stretch break. Get your 10-minute stretch break in.
I'm writing a letter to Tristan.
Which one?
The undead or unliving one.
Five more minutes?
Yeah, but I just have to go pull it out then, so sorry.
Okay, we'll just make do. Helen, seeing you both sit down, turns to Abel. I'm sorry we couldn't meet previously. Was there an engagement or something that held up the two of you? And she exchanges glances between the two of you.
Ja, das was all my fault, mein Schwester. I had to take care of something.
Well, I'm glad we got to meet all the same.
Yeah, I am excited to hear what you have to say.
Yes, I wish I had better amenities for us. I know this is not quite to the scale of Bella's manor, but perhaps one night. How have these knights been treating the two of you?
Poorly enough to know that this is a palace compared to what I'm used to. We should never have to compare ourselves to those high clans.
She smiles at your words.
Simon is right. You do live very well, and you do a good service to our clan.
Well, thank you. I suspect our clan may be in need of elevation these nights. I wish to align myself with the other priors of this city and build upon what we have. Tristan doesn't trust me. Vernon is impossible to find, and Harper... I think Harper hates most people and doesn't distinguish between clan. And she looks down. But the two of you have been most accommodating. She says, looking back up.
Yes, well, I find our clan in a rather interesting position.
Interesting in what way?
They don't want us, but they need us.
She nods.
As for Tristan, I wouldn't worry too much about whether or not he trusts you. I mean, look what his own child has done.
Yes, that is true.
I'm not saying I wasn't involved, but I was not emotionally in any case.
She nods
Since
again.
we are on that subject, what were you doing?
He shrugs and sort of looks down at his long nails, almost like a mortal knight who is about to start filing.
They made me an interesting proposition, and I took it. It was curiosity, nothing more. I actually did not know that the prince claimed the whole of the Tower of London as his domain. I am only newly back to London, after all. I think that's the only reason they let me live.
And was your curiosity satisfied?
Yes, he says. But when he looks at you, Abel, he has a strange look on his face, almost fear.
While we are on that subject, I am also curious. I'd heard a rumor going around that Prince Ambrose is quietly looking for someone who can read Aramaic or Enochian. I believe something was pulled out of the depths of the tower, or something perhaps Grey Rat retrieved that has caught the prince's attention. I managed to get Jack to slip up on a few details. Do you know what might have been pulled out while you were down there, Simon?
That look of fear, which passed briefly, now turns into anger.
No, they didn't tell me anything. All I know is that our previous Prince Adam had some skeletons in his closet. What I saw down there was monstrous.
She continues to study you. I can only imagine. Helen watches you for a few more moments before speaking up again. This is why I am most curious about this rumor that I pulled from Jack. I know that perhaps you are not aware, dear Abel, Ambrose can be quite bold when something catches him, declaring St. Bart's sacrosanct long before he had the authority to do so comes to mind. I have to wonder what he might have found, or what might have been pulled from there, that he deemed a more clandestine approach was warranted.
Whatever it is, I'm sure he has his reasons, and good ones.
It's hard to tell whether that's Simon talking or the blood bond.
Yes. Well, in any case, I really brought the two of you here to listen to what you wanted. What do you want in this city? I want to be your champion. I wish to help and make myself available and become ingrained in the city that I've come to love.
Simon will look at Abel to see if he has anything to say.
Abel strokes his beard and looks back and forth between the two of them. Well, that is quite forward to ask simply what we want. But do you get out of it? Are you, and forgive me if this sounds overly suspicious, but are you trying to overthrow Tristan?
No. She begins to laugh and actually brings her hand out to place it on top of yours, almost reassuringly. No. I wish to gain favor among my clan, which I feel is so fragmented. I wish to know what your goals are and what stands in the way. I have friends in Elysium. I have friends among many of the other clans, but I have so few among my own. Make a perception empathy roll.
Both of us?
If you're watching her, yeah.
Okay.
If you don't have any empathy, is there a negative?
Empathy is a talent, so no.
Simon just thinks she's great. With that roll, anyway.
Abel, as you're watching her, you can see past the smile and you're drawn to the eyes, which look more desperate. There's something behind her words that suggests at least additional motives besides altruism.
Well, Helen, I do not know if your contacts could actually help in my goal. I've come from far away, as I'm sure you're aware, the great land of Saxony. And I am here to root out a certain Cainite.
She looks interested. Please go on.
This individual is an infernalist. It is our duty to God and, well, mine to my sire, to work against them in all manners.
You believe an infernalist Cainite is here in London?
That is what our sources have told us.
She looks to Simon as she speaks up again. The only one I knew of was, of course, the famous Galford Ips, which, of course, is long gone now.
But certainly not forgotten.
Do you suspect that he is still here, Abel?
Out of character, is that the name you decided to give this Cainite, or?
Galford Ips, which I think you probably would have heard by now, was former Cainite at it was a Tremere neonate in London who slew the former prince in a very climactic show that broke the Masquerade. It was months ago.
Yes, okay. Unfortunately, that is not what I'm looking for. Though I wouldn't say that there is no connection.
How very interesting. Well, I cannot say that I immediately have the resources that might aid this, but you might be surprised with what I can accomplish. I shall keep this in mind, your interest in pursuing this.
Please do, Helen, and If you learn anything, pass it my way. I would obviously return the favor.
I'll see what I can do about that. She smiles and nods once.
Abel smiles as well and then turns to Simon.
As she does as well.
And you?
I must say my goals here are a bit more pedestrian. I wish to make myself invaluable first of all. I have great experience with the criminal underworld. But more importantly, I want to see our clan organized. What I've seen on coming to London is an embarrassment. Did you know that in Rome, they have entire cabals of Nosferatu living beneath in the catacombs? They are a unified hierarchy.
Yes, I would say we are very fragmented here. That sounds much stronger.
Then wouldn't it be wise to be having this conversation with all of the priors?
If you can find them. We have no catacombs here, only fractured havens spread to the four winds.
Yes, it is true, I'm afraid. I do know that Tristan here keeps at least one haven not far from St. Paul's, near the crypts. And somewhere, Harper is in the waterways. He claims much of that his domain, but I have not seen him in quite some time. Vernon is probably holed up in one of the slums. He's maintained quite an organization of the impoverished, the small group of orphans he seems to collect. They worked as a impressive spy network, but he's lost contact with me at least. I do not know how much he speaks to Tristan. But Simon is quite right, we are very separated.
Then this would seem the first meeting of many in re-strengthening our clan.
She nods and smiles at that. I would like to include Tristan, but as I said, I have gotten the impression recently that he distrusts me and would rather not include me.
Do you have any idea why?
She looks down at the table for a few moments as though in thought, before shrugging again. I really can't say. Maybe a perception empathy roll. Yeah, it seems as though she genuinely doesn't know.
Well, I have met with Tristan a handful of times, and he has been nothing but polite. Perhaps I should extend the olive branch of our organization? He sort of tilts his head, questioning the last word.
That'd be very helpful to me. She nods.
I can help you make contact, Abel. He has a system.
Very good, and it perhaps would make sense that he could contact the other too, and perhaps we would have a full alliance.
I do like the sound of that. Yes.
I do as well.
We must stick together, us of the low clans and of our clan specifically. The others don't understand what we do and what it takes to be us.
Speaking of the low clans, I know precious little of what happened to poor Muriel or her sire. I had heard of the fire that consumed their haven. Do either of you know anything about that?
Simon shakes his head.
It was my understanding that there's a good chance they still live, and the fire was a distraction of some sort.
Truly.
Yeah. Who it was to distract, I'm not sure.
Poor Muriel. She's something of a nervous bird, as they say. I spoke to her on a few occasions. One, I was able to get her into Elysium, and several outside. I've detected something of a strong pull towards her sire from her. I'm concerned that he has been exploiting her. But I can't say for sure.
That is a concern between sire and child. I do not like it, but it is not our place to say.
Well, I look down on any such use of the blood oath. She says, kind of opening her eyes a bit and being more explicit. And then she turns briefly to look at Simon.
It looks as though Simon is going to let that comment pass. He seems lost in thought now.
Well, in any case, I think I've jabbered on long enough this evening. The two of you know that I mean well, at least, that I wish to strengthen us, all of us, as best I can. But I think I will be more helpful than perhaps you guess. So, I hope this meeting didn't feel like a waste of your time.
No, in fact, it strengthened my resolve. I was feeling a bit lost of late.
I'm glad to hear that, then.
Yeah, I am in agreement with Simon. It is good to know that there is at least some sort of clan unity.
She nods. Well, the two of you are welcome to stay as long as you like. I know the amenities are a bit lacking, but she kind of her voice trails off.
I had actually hoped to ask you a question about something similar.
Of course.
And since the trial,
He says carefully, looking at the both of them.
I found myself without a permanent haven. I'm looking for reasonable accommodation.
Do you not have to stay with your keeper?
He shakes his head again.
It was a short-lived arrangement until I drank the prince's blood twice.
Helen's face sours a bit at that description.
It wasn't that bad.
Simon says.
Well, really the only domain I have is here. I imagine the simplest way would be to see about perhaps purchasing or trading for some piece of domain from another. Perhaps. You've been in the company of that Tito Vega. Perhaps he or one of the keepers has a domain they can spare in exchange for something, a boon or coin, perhaps.
The bloody La Sombra.
Just an idea.
They'd want a piece of my soul to go with it.
Well, Ellen seems secular enough, he says, looking back and forth.
I would offer to help, but I have very little sway in the city, and it wouldn't be too bad to barter with the Sombra. They must watch them. They are, in my experience, the most likely to delve into the dark arts.
I suppose you could go beneath and see if you can find a Harper. I can't imagine you can make use of the entire waterway system down there.
But isn't there the beast down there?
A beast? Oh. Well, I thought that... And she looks to Simon briefly.
You thought correctly.
Abel looks between the two of you, clearly missing something.
There is no beast, Abel. Only me. They cornered me down there. I had to make myself known to them.
Then I think it would be only fair that you took back what you already had.
He shrugs.
In any case, Tito is not a bad chap. Maybe I will ask him after all, if not his masters. It's not that I mind staying with that Quentin fellow, but I just know he's going to hold it over my head.
Abel chuckles. And Tito will not?
Tito seems more terrestrial, I suppose is the word I'm looking for. Quentin has loftier dreams.
You should warn poor Quentin of what happened to Icarus.
I'm sure he would only tell me he could build better wings. Why do I know that? He's been making me read.
The horror. Abel puts on a straight face. Actually, Helen, as long as we're still chatting, do you have any connections to scriptoriums in the area? I'm looking to practice my art and make some coin that way, perhaps a few connections. I am not to boast, but quite talented.
Yes, I believe I know someone who may know someone. That's something I can more likely help you with immediately, she says, nodding. Or at the very least put you in contact.
Very good. And have you decided something more finite on what you want out of our arrangement? What do you want to know, Helen? Who should we follow? There has to be something.
Well, one person comes to mind, though I do not know if Simon will like this very much. I am interested in Tito Vega, in fact.
Oh?
Well, yes. I wish to know more about him. Discreetly, of course.
Well, it would appear that your decision to ask the keepers for some sort of domain has been made for you.
Tito is the closest thing I have for a friend in this city. I don't want to do anything that would injure him permanently.
I'm asking no such thing. I just wish to know what he gets up to, what fancies him.
Oh. Well, I suppose I could find something out for you. In the meanwhile, perhaps I have a story to tide you over.
And she looks at you intently.
What I'm going to tell you, of course, does not leave this room. It involves one of our most esteemed Ventru.
And with that, Simon will actually launch into the story of what happened with Marco Vespucci.
The meeting that he had while Simon snuck around.
Yes, that and what he found in the house.
Helen listens intently, clearly surprised at this information. And actually, Abel, this is the first time you're hearing of this, of course, as well.
Yes.
And out of character, do you know what happened? Did you read the notes? Do you have an idea of what was going on?
I meant to read the notes, so no.
So what happened basically was Tito and Simon went to Marco's, and Simon remaining hidden while Tito meeting with Marco. Simon went and investigated the house while Tito distracted him and talked him up, chatted him about their assignment in clearing the Masquerade. And while Simon was investigating, he discovered a few odd things, such as the bedrooms all being unused. There's clearly no bed that Marco sleeps in, or really anyone has been sleeping in. There's dust on everything. It looks like an untouched manor. Almost it was odd. And he also found a few letters. One was, turns out, written in a Greek cipher. And he lastly found a basement that was stone tile but covered in dirt, and it seemed like an underground garden of sorts that seemed to have mushroom, fungi, other plants, various greenery, but all underground. And at the end of it was a man-sized grave that looked like it had been disturbed or used, and contained reddish dirt that looked different from the rest, and he found a door that he couldn't open. It was all very odd for a venture like Marco Vespucci to have.
And when he is done with this story, Simon will actually look at Abel as if he's just thought of something.
Say, did you not mention you have some talent with old languages?
Yeah, there is much I can understand.
Perhaps you can be of use to Tito and myself in deciphering those letters we found.
Unfortunately, does he know it's Greek? Is that in the story?
Yes.
Unfortunately, my friend, Greek is not a language that I understand.
Blast it all, then. I hate having to widen my circle of trust.
Helen looks visibly awed by the story. Very curious. Very interesting as well. And so Tito kept him busy as you learned all of this.
Yes, and did an admirable job at that.
Hmm.
You might find he's of greater use to us than perhaps you thought.
And why did Tito want to investigate Marco?
The details of it are unclear to me. I helped him as a friend.
Fair enough.
I think Tito mentioned, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, I think Tito mentioned he was suspicious about how easy it was to capture Juan Felipe, which Marco Vespucci basically handed him.
Yes, I seem to recall something like that.
And Simon sort of gestures offhandedly as though it doesn't matter.
Well, perhaps if you notice him dealing more with Marco Vespucci, you might keep me abreast of their goings-on and what you learn of that relationship.
I must admit I do find myself interested after finding what I found.
It is certainly odd. And she looks off in thought for a moment.
If only I could have seen what he was hiding behind that door. But there wasn't time.
Well, time is the one thing we seem to have a great deal of, luckily.
Indeed. And having a Ventru in our back pocket wouldn't be so bad now, would it?
She nods. What a successful meeting this has been. Far more than I had hoped.
Then you have underestimated us. I knew this would prove fruitful for everybody.
She smiles lightly at that. Does anything else come to mind as you're sitting here with me?
I can't think of anything offhand.
Abel stares off into the distance, not saying anything.
Well, as I said, you're free to stay for as long as you'd like. I'll be going out soon. returning to Elysium very soon, at least. But please make yourself at home.
May I ask you a question, Helen?
She looks as though she's about to stand up, but sits down again looking at you. Yes.
I won't hold you long. I merely wonder why you spend so much time in Elysium. I didn't think that you'd be the kind to take to simpering fools.
She smiles. I suppose I've considered it my niche, my strength. Building friends and hearing what I can, what I suppose would be considered the central hub of Cainites here in London. And it has afforded me some sway among some of the Cainites, attaching myself to Bella Matea's hip, and getting what crumbs I can there. Just says, looking down, a bit dejected. Of course, I'll never be that beautiful.
Beauty's overrated.
She seems not to immediately react to that.
What I mean is, it matters more how beautiful you are in your mind.
That's a nice thought. I once was quite a comely woman. Just as nodding once, still looking at the table in thought.
Were you then? Well, I wasn't. I should say my current condition's rather a step up.
Well, it seems unlife throws different obstacles at us.
Helen, of course, you know that this, our curse, as some may call it, is truly a gift from God above. And you can now make yourself as beautiful as you want to be.
Yes, for a time at least. If that's all, gentlemen, if you'll please excuse me.
I do hope we get to talk again soon. Perhaps after we've buttered up Tristan a bit.
She nods and smiles once, but clearly affected by the recent discussion. Good evening to you both, she says, rising.
Guten Tag, Helen.
Good evening, he says with a slight bow.
And she makes her way out of her own haven, leaving the two of you.
Well, I hate to see one so obsessed with vanity.
Now, Abel, we all have our little obsessions.
Abel smiles. That is so.
And we all cope with our curse in our own way.
I do not say it to be cruel. I say it... I feel for her. Do you know what I mean?
He shrugs.
I liked it better when it sounded cruel. I'm a very honest man.
Honesty isn't always cruel, Simon.
No, but it is if it's any fun.
I see that we both have much to learn from one another. And you said you could help me to contact Tristan?
I can. Did you want to do it tonight?
There's no better time than the present.
Ah, well, then follow me.
So the two of you make your way out into the streets.
Yeah, Simon will pull his cloak on again and take Abel with him to that very same building where he first met Tristan,
All right.
where he knows to leave a brick so that Tristan knows to come.
So the two of you make your way out, and again, this is at the beginning of the downtime, and you are able to make your way to this building. You make your way down, and you make use of this system of communication that Tristan has taught you. But you find, you learn that Tristan is unable to meet with you this evening. In fact, he's unable to meet with you most of these evenings. But you learn that you're able to find a meeting near the end of this downtime, and it will happen right as we finish. And it sounds like Abel can be part of this meeting as well. But otherwise, with that, we will return to the remainder of downtime that hasn't been decided. For Abel, what else do you mean to do in this time, besides the meeting with Tristan? Abel, are you there?
I am. I'm just regarding my notes here.
Sure. Want me to come back to you?
If you'd like to, that's up to you.
I just want to know if you wanted some time to think.
Well, I don't know that I have anything other than what I told you earlier. So, is that what you would like me to repeat, or?
Sure, yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so, obviously Abel will be just lurking around London, trying to pick up trails of would-be infernalism, or just tidbits of conversations that seem along the same vein. And while he's doing so, he's trying to get a bearing for the land and come up with a better area to hunt in. One where he won't have to deal with snobby toreadors.
I will say that Helen is able to put you in touch with one of these scriptoriums that would be willing to meet with you and have you basically work for them. So this is an option, but you first need to basically meet them and convince them of your skill. So how does Abel do anything in particular to approach that issue?
Yes, Abel will set up some sort of meeting with them. And I mean, obviously they understand that if they want something beautiful, it will take time to produce. So, but if the job is more so to just write notes for people who can't write themselves, he could easily flourish and show off his skill that way.
All right, so you're trying to show off your skill by like bringing an example of your work to this meeting.
If he has one, yes. Whether or not he has one, I'm not sure. Most of his work was done into books for proper lords and whatnot. So, not something he really keeps and holds on to. It was more so his reputation that brought the clients to him in Saxony.
Right. I'll let you make an intelligence crafts roll if Abel would like to come up with something representative, an example of what he could do. And that could be, the successes from that could add to this roll to meet and get this work. How's that sound?
Okay. Would it make more sense for dexterity crafts to actually create the thing, or?
What are you creating?
Well, if I was illuminating a manuscript, I would probably just be creating a page, doing the image work on it, the writing, the text, the highlighting.
Yeah, let's do dexterity crafts then.
Okay.
We'll do standard difficulty.
He will also spend a willpower because he wants this to work out for him.
All right. Wow, that's 6 successes. That's a tremendous piece of work that you've come up with. You don't have to barely interview at all. Once you show this man at the scriptorium this piece, he immediately hires you. He is floored by your work.
Abel will attempt to stay humble.
I won't make you roll for that. But, yeah, you get this work, you get this job being as you say, maybe a clerk. I don't know what the actual position would be called. But the effective end result is that you can add a dot of resources at the end of this downtime for the work you're doing for the scriptorium, for the artwork and illustrations and the detail. So you've got that going for you. And as far as for... Sorry, you said one other thing that I was going to touch on. I'm trying to remember what you said. As far as infernalism, I think most of your investigation into that, people point you to the only names that were definitely associated with the known infernalist, Galfred Ipswich, and that's Simple Simon and Tito Vega. They seem to be closest to that event. And that's kind of your surface level result, is that if anyone knows anything about what happened or what connections there would be, at least initially, it seems like they would be the ones to ask or stick around.
Abel is now doubly cautious of Tito Vega, knowing that he's a keeper and is the best source of information on a proven infernalist.
All right, and switching to Tito, I think you said there's 1 or 2 things you wanted to do in this downtime as well?
Yes. Bring up my notes here.
I think you mentioned something about that cipher.
Yes. Deciphering the scrolls is, or letters, is a top priority right now. The rest was to have, have his ghoul seek herd for Blackfriar Priory.
Alright. Your ghoul, Camille, returns near the end of the week, and it sounds like she reports back that one of her friends, someone by the name of Mary Anthony, will be coming by the next night, or rather the next evening, and Camille is going to attempt to convince her to stick around long enough for you to wake up.
Alright, Tito is pleased with this news.
As for the cipher, for breaking this code, make an extended intelligence enigmas roll. So I'm looking at a message. Make an extended intelligence enigmas roll. The difficulty here will be 7. You'll need 10 successes to uncover the whole message. You can make a roll for each night.
Difficulty 7? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, and you can just keep rolling until either you get it or you botch. Uh-oh.
Is that a botch? That is a botch.
Yeah, it is a botch. So what happens is you are working on this cipher, and you've got your quill. You're working to write down the letters in a different order and rearrange things, and you accidentally get a lot of the ink onto the letter, and about a third of the message is just covered. It's ruined. Not all of it, but some of it.
Well, Tito clearly curses his foolishness, and after he's calmed down, he'll at least attempt to finish deciphering the remainder of the message.
Alright, you can roll another 5 times for the rest of this week. Don't botch more. There's only so much to ruin. That's not a real botch. You got a success there. But
This wasn't a botch.
You didn't make any progress that night. You got 3 more nights. Alright, you're at 6 successes. You got 2 more nights.
How much did you say I needed?
10.
Hmm.
That's
off.
another botch. Okay, let me think. Man, you are rolling terribly. I had to come up with 2 different botches. I'll spare you. I feel like it's pretty punishing to have you multiply botch on the same attempted task. You've already ruined a third of this. We'll say nothing gets done that night.
Okay.
I'm feeling lenient because I've never seen anybody roll this terribly, this consistently. Alright, so that's 9 successes. You're not done. You're almost done by the end of downtime, despite having destroyed a third of the message. So as of the night we're starting on, you're almost done, but you're not quite. And was there anything else you were working on? Oh, I remember. You got a request by Quinn to meet with this broker, and you met with him about this deal for a large shipment of sheep. And you already gave me the roll for that. You got 4 successes on your command, and you are successful in dominating him into paying at the original price. He was asking for a substantial increase in price for reneging on his original buyer, but you convince him to sell to Quinn at the original price, and without even meaning to, he signs it, and you get that to Quinn. So that was successful.
There was that. Well, this ciphering, I would imagine, would take up most of the nights.
It is. It's very laborious work, and clearly it's not outside your skill set, but it presses your skill set to the limits.
Sounds fitting that would be all for these nights then.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's appropriate also. Otherwise, as this week progresses, it becomes evident to all that tensions are starting to calm in the city, at least mildly. It's noticed that the cleanse has appeared more disorganized recently, and their patrols in the streets, ostensibly looking for witches and demons, has lessened. Furthermore, a rumor is circulating among the Cain that the sanitation worker who reported the monster beneath London was discovered to have a major opium addiction, and a fiendish and murderous leper was found with many body parts in his home. So the reports have largely been dismissed, and the worries about men disappearing in the waterways and cisterns have largely gone away now. In response to that, the prince publicly commends Marco Vespucci, who takes credit for this. He commends him in Elysium for his efforts to mend the Masquerade, and this is followed by praise from the Harpies, including Bella Matea, who is returned to the public eye. And other vampires in Elysium follow their lead in sharing their appreciation, but no mention of neonate involvement is made. Lastly, Tito, you find that at the end of this downtime, Ellen Ellis has come to take fondly to and developing this friendship with you since you invited her to Bella Matea's party. And near the end of this downtime, while you are frequenting Elysium, she attempts to join you at a table in one of the alcove booths besides the ballroom of Elysium to try and speak with you. Is Tito amenable to this, or does he run away? Does he avoid her when she approaches?
Tito has no reason to avoid Ellen. She has been most useful to him in the past.
Perfect. We'll transition to that briefly. Alright, so on this evening, Tito, you are in Elysium, having been sitting with Ellen for not a great deal of time, speaking together once more, and you see that tonight Elysium is as busy as it often is. Marco Vespucci can be seen shaking many hands and receiving great adulation. But you find it's actually hard to take your eyes off of Ellen tonight. She's got on this fine embroidered black dress that complements her narrow frame nicely. It's impressive. And the two of you are exchanging polite pleasantries briefly, and she finishes laughing at something you said as she speaks up again. Anyway, I'd love to hear more of your meetings with that Kaguya whom left. Mistress Moreau told me she was some kind of demon hunter. I really heard so little of that entire ordeal.
Well, after the death of her soon-to-be child, she abandoned the city to its fates, more or less her words. She did leave a parting gift, since I was there at her child's death and did my best to prevent it. He left with me his prized weapon, a spear.
A spear? Of any special kind?
She says there may be something left of her ghoul's purpose left on the spear. I don't know. She said it may be a weapon against demons. Such things I have no way of confirming.
Oh, very interesting. Do you think she could have done it? Stopped that thing that you saw?
Oh, she was very intimidating. It's quite possible, if anyone could.
She nods. Oh, if it was as capable of as much as you described, I still have to wonder. I can only imagine what else it could accomplish now that it's free.
Indeed. I know precious little of demons.
You notice briefly to your side that your sire is passing off by in the crowds, waving casually to you and Ellen as she passes with a smile. She stops at Marco Vespucci and curtsies to him, and then shakes his hand. They seem to be engaging a bit. But also in your periphery, just beyond her, is your sibling, Chamberlain Oliver, and he eyes your sire as she passes between the two of you, before his eyes glare at you.
And Tito will lock eyes with Robin for a moment.
Ellen seems to take the cue and looks up to the crowd, perhaps back to him and then back to you. I realize he's my sire, but I've come to loathe Sir Oliver. Honestly, I wish perhaps you had embraced me. And she flashes you a smile.
Truly.
Of course.
That's quite the compliment.
No mere compliment. You're a better man than him, Tito. Better in every way I can think of. You deserve the attention Lady Moreau gives you. But sometimes I worry, Tito. I worry Sir Oliver will do something extreme to take you out of the picture, win back Mistress Moreau's favor, she says, casting a glance back in his direction.
I will, of course, be on alert. It wouldn't be the first time he's tried something dubious.
May I ask you a personal question, Tito? She says with an interested and focused look.
Of course, Ellen.
If you could, and you can fully trust me, she says, bringing one hand and placing it gently on top of yours. If you could, would you get rid of Sir Oliver? Permanently, I mean, before he gets rid of you.
And Tito gives her a stare into her eyes and a smile. You know me all too well.
She returns your smile. I think you could do it. And I think, perhaps, you should consider it. I would even help you, Tito, she says, nodding once.
Then, when that time comes, I will be sure to call upon you.
It only makes sense. You are so much more than him, Tito. He has stolen the status he has, unworthy of it, really. Do you really think he deserves to have your sire, Mistress Juliet, over you? And you can see out to the crowds where Ellen is looking. Actually, at this moment, your sire and Robin Oliver are speaking, laughing together, actually. And he brings a hand up and they embrace for a short hug with smiles.
And Tito responds to this scene with a glimpse of anger on his face.
I mean, look at how close they are becoming already, Tito. It's happening this very moment. You're losing your relationship with Mistress Moreau right in front of you.
You are quite right. But it won't remain that way for long.
That's right, Tito. I agree. And her hand upon yours tightens somewhat. But you must move faster, Tito. It's almost too late. You need to squash him like the insect he is compared to you. I mean, do you not want to stop this? And she gestures out again to the crowd, except the crowd is gone. And now it's just the two of them. Your sire is bent over a table facing you. The skirts of her dress are hiked up as Robin grasps her by the hips, and he is penetrating her from behind, grinning cheek to cheek, mouth open and baring his fangs, staring at you.
The sudden change of scenery has all the alarms in Tito's mind going off, yet this also arouses great anger in him. Perhaps the beast is seeking to make itself known.
Tito, he does not deserve that. Marco Vespucci does not deserve praise. You deserve that praise, her attention and favor. You deserve my loyalty and Camille's obedience. You deserve it all, Tito, and you know it.
Ellen is saying all the right words to play down Tito's pride, but at the same time, with the sudden change of scenery, he is more guarded. Enough! Why do you show me these signs?
Let me help you, Tito. Just ask for my help, and your enemies will be crushed before you. The voice changes, it becomes sharp and cold, and you realize the hand on yours is not Ellen's. You look at Ellen's face, but suddenly it's not Ellen's face anymore. There is no face. The figure across the table is now raised up 7 or 8 feet, all in darkness. A tall, winged figure of roiling, shadowy black and purple flame. The faceless head at the top looks down at you and tilts its head to the side as you hear it speak again. Vega. And you wake up. You're back in the Blackfriar Priory. It was just a dream, or perhaps a nightmare. What do we see when we turn to Tito?
This is perhaps one of the worst nightmares Tito has had as he wakes up. If he still had breath, he would gasp and pant. But his eyes just remain wide open, his mouth slightly agape. He'll survey the room and reaffirm his grasp on reality to this.
You look around, you get a bearing of the world around you. You realize it's the present night. You met with a broker the previous night, and it's the present. You look around, nothing really looks out of the ordinary, except that the spear you were given as a gift has fallen to its side.
Tito is actually disturbed by this line. He suspects the demon may be trying to manipulate him. Recalling tales of succubi and incubi. You will do a awareness check.
Sure, make a perception awareness. Difficulty 9. You're still getting your wits about you. You're still discomforted by the dream. You think maybe something was here in some form for some time, but you really can't tell.
This sets Tito off the edge. He will, at least in the gesture to spite the demon, set the spear upright. And get ready to carry on with the rest of his night. He's come so close to deciphering this note that is what he wants to complete first.
All right. So you mean to immediately set to work to this note?
Out of character, I'm trying to recall if there was anything planned for the end of the week. I don't think so. So, yes.
All right, you can make the same roll. You'll need one more success, and you'll have the full message. After
Should have
about...
spent a willpower.
Yeah, maybe next time. After about an hour of getting into it, you feel like you're too shaken up. You're not able to focus tonight, and you decide you're not going to get anywhere with this tonight.
And Tito feels that he will need to walk and clear his mind before he retakes any effort at this. He'll go to check on Camille.
Alright. As you do, we'll switch scenes and switch to another individual. We will switch to Quentin. You are waking up for the evening, and as you do, Quinn, as you're rising, you notice something immediately. There's something physically different. You feel something inside, something you haven't felt since you were alive. It's a soreness. It's actually a fairly intense soreness that you grow to become more aware of as you awaken. It feels as though your lungs are actually inflamed and becomes quite painful. You are starting the night off with 1 lethal damage.
Yay.
This is also the night you expect your shipment to arrive.
And hopefully get to meet with Cole Masters.
What do we see when we turn to Quinn as he's waking up and making this realization?
He's going to groan his way out of his resting place and set about making preparations for the procedure to come. He's also going to go ahead and grab a previously prepared package full of papers and go in search of Simon, who should also just be waking up, unless he's already procured a haven elsewhere.
At this point, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that he's still at Quinn's.
He is. He wasn't able to find anything yet. Remember, halfway through downtime, he gave up on it for now.
So you find that Simon is waking up. Actually, he'd actually be up a little bit before you. I will turn briefly to Simon. As you wake up, is there anything in particular you set about doing in Quinn's estate, Simon?
No, he's going to await word from Quinn in case he needs his help.
All right, he is precisely where you hope and expect him to be, Quinn.
Hold on just a sec. We need to help the wife. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So Quinn is going to offer over a manila envelope. It's obviously stacked with papers, sealed with wax. I'll be undertaking the procedure as soon as possible. Hopefully, Herr Masters will be ready. As ready as I can make him anyway. Tonight. Regardless of the outcome, I need you to deliver this to Tristan.
Very well.
I'll need to be exsanguinated. I take it as a kindness if you do me the service of disposing of any blood that comes out of me. Burn it with fire. I don't need it falling into the Tremor hands.
That I can do also.
Quentin looks visibly haggard.
You don't look so well.
The illness is progressing. It's reached my internal organs, it feels like.
Then there isn't much time.
No, I'd hate to end up like Mr. Ford.
I'd hate it too. You're the only bourgeois so far that I haven't hated.
I've left instructions with my servants that until you can find suitable housing, you're to be allowed to stay here, even if I don't survive.
That's kind of you, but I won't be hanging about in a plague house. So let's make sure you survive.
Quinn cracks a bit of a grin. Careful there, Simon. You almost sounded concerned.
I did, didn't I? I should watch that.
After all, you do have a reputation to uphold.
So when do we begin?
I believe first we'll need that shipment of livestock delivered. I should be able to send a few of my men down to bring them up.
You're going to need more than that. Do you have buggies?
I have men skilled in offloading various crate and goods. They'll be able to drive a few head of sheep up to my estate.
Out of character, Quinn would be familiar at this point that the stock he purchased was more on the order of about 100 sheep.
You're talking to a guy who's driven like 1,000 head of cattle. This is nothing. I'm talking about like real life. My uncle, a few hundred is nothing to me.
I just want to make sure that Quinn knows that. It's
Fair.
not okay.
He's also very practiced at downplaying the seriousness of things, so he's going to head up and start barking orders at servants to go make arrangements and make sure that the livestock is delivered as quickly as possible.
All right. Where are you instructing him to place the livestock?
The storehouse for now. It should be large enough.
We never know the specifics, but we can say so. So your servants move quickly at your commands, and before long you've got quite a few staff on their way out, with the expectation that they'll be back at probably a few hours with the sheep.
Where is Coal Masters?
Is it an out-of-character question?
No. Very much not.
Who are you asking?
The heir at this point.
Oh.
Spend my entire unlife trying to stay away from the Tremor, and when I need one,
Maybe he's afraid he'll get sick.
something tells me he's not that foolish.
It is common knowledge that those who wish to interface with the Tremere go to the Guild of Apothecaries. There's usually at least a ghoul attendant there.
I thought we had sent word to him.
Oh, were you arranging for
Yeah.
a meeting to have begun tonight?
Yeah, I thought so.
Okay.
Yeah,
In that case, the response you would have gotten is that you would meet them there. That's where he wants to meet.
Then Quinn will go ahead and gather his things, a copy of his research notes, and head that way.
And Simon in tow?
Yep, Simon in tow.
All right. We will change scenes. We follow Quinn and Simon. All right. The two of you make your way through London and back through the streets until you've made your way at this oddly shaped building at an odd angle of streets intersecting. It's almost triangle shaped. You enter, recognizing as the Guild of Apothecaries, and before long, an attendant, whom you have to assume is some kind of ghoul, seems to know to expect you, and you are led back into a room further in the building, filled top to bottom with books and scrolls and ledgers lining the walls. A desk with a few chairs, one behind and a couple in front, is near the center. And you see that Cole Masters is seated behind the desk in a long, dark crimson robe, reading a scroll laid out across the table with letters you wouldn't initially recognize. But when he sees the ghoul attendant and you enter, he rolls the scroll up. Ah. Mr. Chamberlain, please, take a seat.
If it's all the same to you, I'd rather stand. Quinn is still nursing the burn on his neck, and seems to be clutching one side a bit.
Cole Masters appraises you, Simon. You have a guest?
Simon has been assisting me. Where I go, he goes.
Yeah, what he said.
He raises an eyebrow, slowly, but otherwise maintains a placid face. Very well. I have been most eager to speak with you since your declaration in court. It is most interesting to me to hear of these claims. And this. What is it you are claiming to have discovered precisely here?
A means of treating the afflicted.
May I review some of your materials briefly? And he extends a long palm outward. Still sitting.
In fact, I've brought you a copy. I took the courtesy of creating a second draft. And he goes and hands that over.
Cole takes the materials and he starts scanning them over quickly, flipping through pages. You're there for a couple minutes while he's just reading quietly in this room. The ghoul attendant has not left either. Eventually he starts speaking, still looking at some of these. Exsanguination. I had considered a comparable treatment. Great minds think alike. And he says, looking up with the hint of a smile.
It has been my experience. Great minds think for themselves.
His beady eyes affix you with a discomforting and sharp focus. Dr. Fontaine and I briefly discussed the plague and his ideas for treatment. He had come to apparently very similar conclusions as you did, Master Chamberlain. I did find it rather inauspicious in timing that the night just prior to your claims for these findings, the haven of Dr. Fontaine burned down. Thoughts on that, Master Chamberlain?
I have none. It seems quite inauspicious from where I stand as well. It seems to put a bit of a black mark on my own work.
You're not necessarily lying, but make a manipulation subterfuge to conceal any emotion in that. He continues to study your face before smirking ever so slightly, and to see a smirk on his face is for some reason it looks unnatural. I care not how you came across these materials, how you came across this treatment. You are looking for treatment, yes?
I'm looking for someone to administer the treatment. It would be inconvenient for me to try and administer this to myself.
We have just such amenities for methods such as these, but it poses some risk for us to do so.
I have the facilities, I have the goods, I have the equipment, and I've procured a sizable volume of vitae.
He continues to watch you.
What I lack are a second pair of skilled hands.
As much as I am certain you believe yourself something of a perhaps amateur physician, if this is to be done, it will be done in the chantry.
As you like. You can send your ghouls round to my estate to gather up the vessels.
He nods. One condition beyond that, however.
Which is?
For the entrance into the recesses of our chantry, the duration of your stay and your exit, you will remain blindfolded. And upon the end of your treatment, you will be returned precisely here, and your blindfold will be removed.
You'll forgive me if the reputation of Clan Tremor does precede you a bit. As such, I would ask that Simon assist you in as much as I have asked him.
The Tremere looks back at you, Simon, to gauge you. What do we see when we turn back to Simon?
Simon looks surprised that Quinn wants him to help, but he'll say,
I'll go blindfolded as well, but you'll have to unblindfold me in the room.
The Tremere looks between the two of you briefly before returning to you, Quentin. Very well. He may accompany you, and as we have need of his assistance, he will be involved.
I have given Simon instructions of my own as well, to ensure that my own vitae is properly disposed of.
He's silent at that. Seems not to have a response.
If there are no objections, as I have no more, let us proceed.
It will take me one night to prepare the other of my chantry for this, and to have everything prepared, to have your supply stowed away and ready for use. Return tomorrow evening.
Very well.
He nods once. He's been holding onto that scroll, which has been rolled up since you entered.
Quinn will extend his hand for his note to be returned.
With his other hand, he moves and he gives you those notes back, though you suspect if you hadn't said anything, he would have kept them.
I knew that already. Until tomorrow evening. He'll tuck his notes back into his tunic and head for the door.
And you are led back out. And Ghoul brings you back to the front of the Guild of Apothecaries until you are back, and then you are outside again. What is Quinn? What do Quinn and Simon mean to do now?
Quinn's going to start leading the way back to his estate. The sooner you can get that parchment to Tristan, the better.
I have a meeting scheduled with him this very evening.
Excellent. I'd rather him have that now rather than wait till tomorrow.
Will you be able to wait till tomorrow?
I don't know.
Damn the Tremere.
If you have a meeting, by all means, take that with. He'll make of it what he needs to. The message will be the same either way.
Then let us make sure you're safely tucked away. And I will make haste.
Indeed. I'll be leaving a sample of my own vitae in my chamber. Make sure Tristan knows it's there. If I don't survive.
Simon nods.
And he'll go ahead and head on towards the estate.
All right. Simon, you mean to continue on with your scheduled meeting with Tristan now?
Simon will get Quinn back to the estate, but then yes, he will break off and go to collect Abel for their meeting.
All right, perfect. We will change scenes as we switch to Abel. All right, Abel, we turn to you on this evening as you are rising. You know that you have a meeting with Tristan and that Simon will probably be coming by to collect you at some point from your haven pointed to you by Belamistea. What do you mean to do before then, if anything?
To clarify, I don't feel that... I mean, it probably doesn't matter in the long run, but Abel will be meeting Simon at a place that is not his haven. But there's nothing stopping Simon from following him there at some other point in time.
Oh, wherever you plan to meet, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Between the two of you, wherever you wish to meet. I assume you worked that out.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't Abel's haven because paranoia.
Fair enough. Alright, so the two of you agree to meet at a nondescript street in London, I assume.
How much time do... I assume we set some sort of time by the bells of the churches and whatnot.
Probably a few hours. From now. For you, at least.
Abel will then head to the scriptorium where he works.
All right.
And
go ahead.
He wanted to ask around and see if there's anybody there that speaks or knows Greek.
All right. And before I forget again, I remember you did mention... I was trying to remember before. Now I remember. You were looking for a place to hunt somewhere, and for the downtime, I'm not doing, hunting rolls and everything. Effectively, this is one more night, so everyone make sure you mark off one more blood point for this new night. Don't worry about the rest of the downtime. And we'll put a pin in the feeding thing unless you decide to go feeding. As for the scriptorium and finding somebody who can speak Greek, I think. I think that's a safe assumption that you would be able to find someone there who can speak, read, and write in Greek. That's a good place to look for someone like that. You're able to find at least one person. It's late at night, though. They're expecting to go home very soon.
Yeah, Abel was just questioning if they were there, giving an excuse that he has come across some text that he himself is unable to understand, and if whoever this guy is would be willing to help at some later point, he'd be very appreciative, kind of thing.
Yes, you're new to the job, but it seems like the people here are relatively open to that kind of idea. So it sounds like you have at least one person who in the future you might be able to talk to about translating Greek.
Okay, that's all Abel wanted to verify before he met up with his clanmate.
Alright, and it takes you a little bit of time to get down to the scriptorium and meet this person and find this out. Not a great deal. So it's right around that time that you're syncing up pretty well, and you make it to this street corner down in London, in this back alley. And Simon, as you make your way over there, you see that Abel is waiting.
All right, he will again make himself known.
Abel.
Good luck, Simon.
I'm glad I was able to make it. Something came up.
Is everything alright?
For now, I hope. But it is fortuitous we had a meeting with Tristan this evening. For the sake of a mutual acquaintance.
Abel perks an eyebrow and tilts his head slightly. And who might that be?
Quentin Chamberlain.
And what sort of trouble has he gotten himself into?
Now is not the time to discuss it. We should make haste to the meeting place.
Very good, then. Onward.
All right, Simon will take him where they mean to go.
Alright. The two of you set off down one of these waterways, and you start to make your way through the familiar passages that only the Nosferatu traverse in the direction of this meeting location you've been to. And we will pause here before we get into this meeting and take a 10-minute break since it's right at 8:10.
Cool.
Alright, be back in 10 minutes. And I'm back.
I'm here too.
Yay. So how'd you sleep?
Filled with nightmares, and don't know too much about the demon rule book, but I think it's trying to possess me.
That sounds scary.
That sounds scary. I'd be terrified right now. I don't know, maybe I'll have Tito look into occult. Using his occult skills,
Well, yeah, Tito has the unique benefit of not just having high occult, but he actually studied demonology alongside Galfred, so he knows a thing or two now. He can actually claim to have read up on it some.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Abel's off eating his bonanza bread.
I just mentioned he's going for his dog.
Oh, is he? That's just code for banana bread.
It's not.
Just kidding. Are you all back then?
I want some goddamn banana bread.
Go buy some bananas. It's really easy to make.
I know, I make really good banana bread.
Just too lazy to make it yourself.
I don't have any bananas.
Also, you need them to ripen.
Guess you could buy banana bread. Whatever. Back to the task at hand.
We follow Simon as he leads Abel through these passages until the two of you have returned to this meeting location. You have to go through the waterways, but you aren't in there very long before you make it to this chamber. It's odd. It's something like a man-made, carved-out room, clearly subterranean, but things have been brought in, like a table, wooden table is in the middle. There are cloths scattered around. It's something of a mess in here, and there are long, sharp divots on top of the wooden table. And the two of you arrive at the appointed time, but you don't see Tristan, at least yet. You have a moment, at least, perhaps, to speak to each other before he arrives.
He might not be happy to see me.
That seems to be a recurring theme.
The two of you are waiting there not very long beyond that before a figure manifests beside you, and you see the long and spindly crouched form of Tristan, whom you know could be very tall if he stood upright, and he has something of a very slender build, unnaturally thin and gangly, but he often crouches down into this form that better contorts to the angles of this subterranean area. And he looks between the two of you with his black eyes. Well, I've been less happy to see others.
Danke schön for meeting with us, Tristan.
He nods once, and he looks to Simon to study him for a moment. What is Simon doing?
Simon does not like uncomfortable silences. Well, at least not where Tristan's concerned.
Hey, but we haven't had many chances to speak, have we?
No, and I hope that this can change in the future.
Maybe. I have not seen the Nosferatu brought so low in this city since my arrival. And he paces over to the table, this wooden desk in the center, and he brings his long spindly fingers across it, and his long nails start to dig into one of the familiar divots, and you see now perhaps why there are so many sharp divots in this table. And he seems to stare down as he's passively scratching into it back and forth. I have precious few I can rely on now. Apples has earned his keep, at least, and seems not to be fucking anything up so far. But otherwise, things remain questionable. And he casts a glance back in your direction, both of you.
Tristan, I want to make it right.
So do I. It's time to clean house in this goddamn city. Maybe you can help me with that, Simon. Starting with my other 3 errant clanmates.
Simon looks at Abel nervously.
What do you have in mind?
At least one of them is working against me, actively. I know that much, but I don't know why or to what end.
And you are sure it is Nosferatu working against you?
He nods, looking away from you, but you can see the bobbing of his head turned away. You weren't around for the attack on Elysium months ago, but that never should have happened. Things have been deteriorating here, and that's been the greatest culmination of that. We should have known long in advance something like that might have happened.
Yeah, that is a great misfortune. And if
Not a misfortune, he interrupts you and stops in his scratching. Sabotage. Active, deliberate misinformation, lack of information, somewhere. And he goes back to scratching.
Do you have any idea who it might be working against you?
Of the three, can't say. Maybe all of them. I need the two of you to look into this.
It is, in a way, the reason we've asked to see you.
He doesn't turn, he seems to be listening as he's filing his nails or digging into this table.
yeah, that is the reason Simon and I are here. We, the two of us, we're thinking that this clan needs more cohesiveness, and we wanted to reach out to all of the priors in the city and bring them together, working for the just cause.
He chuckles quietly, looking away from you. That's how it used to be, at least. Maybe it can be again.
It's not just us who wish this.
But he'll stop and look at Abel, who wants to talk.
Abel pauses and then continues. If you want to know who works against you, is it not best to keep them under your foot? Or nose, I think it is you say.
Would that I could. The others are elusive.
All the more reason to bring us together.
You're all so young, Abel. One thing you'll learn is that when you come to find another Cainite is not coming forward to you, when you find they're avoiding you even, it's a dangerous thing to try and poke the beast, so to speak. Especially with our kind. Some of us get pretty goddamn reclusive. Careful touch. He nods to himself. That's what we need. I need to find out who needs to be scraped from this city.
There is one, at least, as I was saying, who wishes to make peace.
He'll turn to you, and he stops briefly in his scratching.
I'm speaking of Helen.
Did she say why?
For the same reason as Abel has mentioned. Immunity. She has a feeling you do not trust her, and telling us what you have, I see why.
You believe her? He says, turning to you and then Abel.
I, for one, think I do, yes.
And I as well. It would be unwise to think that she has no other motives, some sort of personal gain. But I think on the whole she... she seems legitimate in her concern.
Perhaps. You're new here, so I, ironically, trust you more than some of the locals, Abel. I know that you can't have been a part of the problem that arose at Elysium. Outside blood helps, sometimes.
It gives me a sort of outsider's point of view. I think making me more neutral amongst the rest of our clan. Which is why I believe that now is the time that we should reunite.
I agree. With what loyal part of this clan remains, we should. I'm gonna need you to ferret out the other two. Helen as well, but that won't be as difficult. Vernon might be the hardest to find. He has a half-dozen haunts and safe havens across London. Smart, but paranoid.
We shall do as you wish, Primogen.
You may trust Helen, but I have my suspicions. As you know, she spends most of her time in Elysium, but where she goes otherwise, I haven't been able to pinpoint, except that at least once in the last month, she came in on a carriage from a town called St. Albans. And he shrugs, digging into the divots. Could be nothing, but... And his voice trails off. It leaves a silence. I heard of some activity that was odd from that town. It's given me some skepticism around her since then.
Abel perks up and takes a half step forward. Odd? How so?
Just keep my ear to the ground. I keep hearing that people passing by that town they're shooed out, they're not kept. The locals there, they don't want people sticking around. Can't tell exactly what's going on. Maybe some lick has moved in and started ghouling too much. But just get this feeling that's not the case. Maybe even more concerning, this clan has been increasingly fractured over the last few years, but Helen never expressed any interest in anything besides herself until just now, a month after coming back from this town. Maybe I am getting paranoid in my ears, but I see connections.
If it's as you say, then perhaps she is trying to use us. All the same, she wants to meet with you.
No, I'm sure she does.
It could be on neutral ground.
I'll think about it. I think it is likely we could make a meeting happen. But I still want you to look into her.
If it would help heal the scarring that I've created, then I'll do whatever you ask.
The last one, Harper. You'll have to check in on him too, unfortunately, and he's gotten a bit of a temper. I've had worsening relations with him over the last few years as well. Haven't spoken to him in months, in fact. Hasn't been to court at all. And you'd know, if you haven't met him, and he turns to Abel. He reeks of the sewer and rotten eggs. Unmistakable. Makes it hard to be polite in public. And I think probably why he almost exclusively stayed down there to begin with.
We shall seek the both of them out, then. Hopefully I have more luck than I did finding Gabe.
Or Gage, sorry.
Yeah. The child of the prince. Or sheriff, I should say. Never did find out what happened to him. Maybe if you find him, Harper would tell you. He seems to have the comings and goings of that place. Better than I do. There's one last thing that might help us. And he stops at his divoting and peeling of wood, chipping away. There's Genevieve Silvers. She wants status in this city again, and I spoke with her. She could become a powerful ally if she gains that status and she's aided by us. We're going to aid her, because I don't trust the alternative. Marco Vespucci's been poking around, and they're vying for that position left by Miss Pierce.
Is that so? Then there are some things I think you should know.
What's that?
He'll look at Abel.
Should I recount my story again?
You did it so well before.
Simon nods and takes a breath he really doesn't need. And then he will recount also to Tristan the same story that he told Helen.
Simon listens. You can't tell if he's intent or bored. His expression is difficult to discern. Sorry, were you going to say something?
No, sorry, I pushed the button by accident.
He listens, and I'll make a roll for him really quick. That's odd. An odd story. For a very odd venture. I can't make out what might be down there. I'm surprised that we didn't know about that. So what were on those letters?
What were on them, we don't know. They were written in something that Tito called a cipher. I don't know what that means.
A code.
I have, however, found somebody who speaks Greek.
You have. I do.
Even better.
Why a Ventru is sending out coded letters and maintaining an underground garden of sorts. And maybe sleeping down there. All the more reason he should not be gaining any more power in this city. He needs to be looked into more thoroughly. You didn't happen to look at that ledger, did you, Simon?
Simon looks embarrassed, but he has to admit,
I cannot read, Tristan. Although the Brujar Quinn is teaching me.
That's right, I think you mentioned that once before. There might be some telling information. Someone like him keeps accounts like that. Gutsy of you to move in and do what you did. If you find that chance again, I'd be interested to see what was on those pages.
I should think it would be very difficult now, although his servant lied about delivering those letters. Marco will soon find out, and he will be suspicious.
Unfortunate. Perhaps if you find a time when he leaves, then... Anyway. Genevieve will be aided by us. We need more allies in this city. There's a man by the name of Bailiff Remy Devereaux. He's a twat in charge of all those bastards clogging the waterways up for us. Genevieve's working him to pull them out, but until the Lord Mayor of London returns, he's still open to being swayed. We need to make sure her plan succeeds. He doesn't get cold feet all of a sudden.
Does Miss Silvers know that we'll be assisting her?
I told her I would do what I can to aid her efforts. That means we will be.
Well then, we should ferret out the others. The more bodies we have, the more aid we can provide.
Yeah. Be careful about that. I think that's most of what I wanted to get out. If you see this bailiff in the next few nights, make sure he knows to do the right thing and pull those men out. Bribe, threaten, do what you need to do. He just needs to be alive long enough to get the sanitarians out of the sewers.
Do you know how we might find this man?
I can point you in the direction of the health department, their main building, office of sanitation. Otherwise, I haven't gotten a direct address just yet. Still working on that. Should have it pretty soon if you don't find it yourself.
Simon bobs his head in assent.
You should know something else, the two of you, before our little meeting is over. I had in my possession a great boon owed to me by Ambrose. And he lets that sit in the air for a few moments before going on. Several factors were at work in swaying his opinion on Greyrat, not the least of which was Eleanor Grey's bitter influence. But in the end, I opted not to speak out on his behalf.
did wonder about that.
Sometimes you just need to recognize you've got yourself a bad penny, and it's time to call the game. My point being, I don't spend resources saving licks that only deplete them, to show me that neither of you are another bad penny, and this will improve things for all of us.
Simon does look suitably cowed.
Abel is standing with a complacent look upon his face, understanding the threat before him, but not cowering.
I'll be seeing you around. And with that, he stops digging into the table and starts walking off in the direction down one of these tunnels.
Simon looks at Abel.
That's it. We've been dismissed. Let's get going. Oh, Tristan, wait.
He stops and turns.
I nearly forgot until I saw it on the table here. I have something for you. From Quinn Chamberlain.
He stops and gauges you for a few moments. What is this?
Quinn has unfortunately developed the plague. The very same that Ford showed.
Ford. He looks at
He
you,
nods.
confused. I haven't seen Ford in weeks. He developed the plague.
That's right, you left. You left before he arrived. Ford is dead, I'm afraid.
From the plague, he says, turning his full body to you now.
He came to court, attempted to attack the lot of us, including the Chamberlain.
Now, this is the kind of thing I wish I had been informed of earlier.
This Nosferatu unity we speak of, that would improve our information network as well.
And you said a plague killed Ford. No plague has ever killed a Cainite before.
I can't pretend to know much about diseases. But from what Quinn has told me, he hasn't much time. He sought the help of the Tremere.
He grumbles slightly at that. I see. So, we've got a plague that kills vampires. Well, this city really wears out its charm.
It doesn't just kill, it obliterates. There was nothing left.
He looks down in thought for some time. I've got some texts that might be more informative on some of this. I'm gonna look into this more.
Simon will gesture to the parcel.
He takes it, and he nods at you once, looking at Abel again to see what he's doing.
Abel is standing there, absorbing this new information to him as well. his face is less composed than it was when he was being threatened.
Try not to get sick in the meantime, he says kind of offhand as he turns away. And before long, you see him just disappear out of sight around a corner, leaving the two of you.
Well, we will be quite busy now, it would seem.
Very, very busy indeed. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't want to get bored.
Perhaps then we should have a chat about this Ipswich. And Abel will try to examine Simon's face to see if he makes any sort of motion at bringing up the name almost out of the blue.
He looks away for a moment, but makes no other indication.
Unless, of course, you don't want to.
Why shouldn't I?
I have heard that you and the illustrious Tito Vega perhaps know the most about this infernalist.
It's no secret that we were allies once.
And he grew right under your noses?
What are you trying to ask me, Abel?
Just what you know of Ipswich and infernalism, dear Simon.
Do you want to hear that I knew he was one? Do you want to hear that I knew what he was planning and I didn't stop him?
No, of course not, because I don't think that those things are true.
They are true.
And what else do you know then, Simon?
I know that he swore me to secrecy on threat of death, but now that he himself is dead, I don't feel inclined to keep his secrets.
Do you know if he had any accomplices in his dark magics?
That I do not know. But myself and Grey Rat were allied with him.
I'm gonna send you something simple, Simon, very quickly.
Simon does not mention Tito at all.
Oh my goodness.
I am glad that you feel you can be truthful and honest with me, Simon. It is a good show towards the Prior's future.
I'll be even more honest with you then. I didn't know what he was going to do.
I'm sorry, did you say did not?
Did not, he says.
I knew that he planned to destroy the prince, using magic, but not the methods he would use.
Then perhaps there is still time to save your soul.
I'd like to think so. I've been working very hard toward that end myself.
Did you get my message, Simon?
Yes. Okay, I'll make the roll. And it was delivered.
Alright, Abel, roll perception empathy.
Standard diff for me.
Yep, for both. Alright, carry on.
And Perhaps now it's a better time to talk of what ails Quinn.
I have delivered the parcel to Tristan as I promised. Should you wish to know more about Quinn's condition, I suggest you talk to him yourself.
I am not one to be medically minded. I believe that these things are sent to us when taken from us by God.
That's spectacularly narrow-minded of you. God can only see so much.
Let me teach you new words this evening, Simon. Omnipotent and omnipresent.
Well then, what do they mean?
All-knowing and all-present. He sees all, Simon. Have faith.
Simon does look a bit stricken by this revelation. But he shakes his head as if he's shaking it off.
Then if anything, I think there are some things that God chooses not to see. And all the better for it.
Well, mein Bruder, are we off to the ferret races?
I shall need to stop by Quinn's estate to tell him I've done as he asked, and to assure you that we're hoping.
Excuse me, I lost my train of thought there for a second.
And to assure him I'll be able to help him with your task tomorrow.
And then perhaps we should visit Air Vega to get those letters for Tristan to translate.
Indeed.
With that, Abel will turn and begin to head back in the right direction and then pause and let Simon take the lead.
And Simon does.
All right. The two of you begin making your way out of the warrens, or out of the waterways and passageways under London, and back into the city. We'll transition to a different part of London. Actually, we will return to Tito Vega, as he is still at the Blackfriar Priory, heading in the direction of Camille, still shaking off this nightmare and trying to make sense of this cipher. Tito, you find Camille is near her dwelling in the priory, and with her is a woman, a young girl really, maybe late teens, much like Camille, and she's a bit round and plain looking. She's in a simple green kirtle, long brown hair, and she looks confused and she looks tired, and she looks like she's speaking to Camille, who looks like she's trying to say something. They're not fighting, but they look like they're disagreeing about something.
Tito will step forward, adjusting a hood over his face.
So you're trying to conceal your face?
Just in the shadows. Imagine it's quite dark.
Alright. So you're making yourself present, though? Camille sees you first and she turns, and you see a smile automatically appear on her face. And the woman beside her, this girl, turns and she takes a step back, surprised. Ah, good evening, Tito. This is my friend, Mary Anthony. And the woman looks startled, and she's looking at you wide-eyed. Good evening, sir. How do you...
Tito.
She's whispering back to Camille. How do you know him? Go ahead.
Tito will nod in the direction of... Was it Mary?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Tito will nod in direction towards her in his hooded figure. Good evening, Camille.
This girl named Mary seems to look back to you, still looking a bit frightened at the sight of you in this hood, staring to the shadows. I apologize, good sir. I have stayed too long. I think I mean to return home. Camille, perhaps you will join me? No, you should stay. Mr. Vega here is very kind. Truly. And she's looking back and forth between the two of you. He wanted to meet you, Mary.
Tito will step... he'll still conceal himself, but he'll simply speak up and say, "Yes, are you here to do the Lord's work?"
I was told by Camille here there's a man she thought I would want to meet. She looks like she's stuttering. You can see the sweat coming down her face. She seems to be lost in her words, not really saying anything anymore.
Tito will look into her eyes and say, "You should be calm, my child."
Roll your manipulation, intimidation, difficulty 4. Immediately you see the fear drop from her eyes as they glaze over and look at you, and she goes quiet. Her stuttering stops and her trembling stops. Yes, calm. I am calm.
You must...
Go ahead.
I must invite you inside. Do come, will you?
She nods absent-mindedly, and Camille seems to... The smile on her face is diminishing. But Mary seems to be following you.
Thank you for your assistance, Camille. It means the world to me.
Yes. Of course. Glad to be of service. And she smiles, but she looks uncertain.
Do not worry about your friend. No harm will come to her.
Of course. Of course. And she nods a couple more times. And she stays there, standing as Mary follows you.
Do you have anything you need to do?
No. I was coming here and then I was going home.
Very well. Before you go, a reward is in order for this.
reward.
Aye, you know of what I speak. And Tito will bring a finger to his mouth and prick his finger.
Her eyes light up at that. She immediately smiles and starts walking towards you almost without thought. And Mary just continues to stare.
And Tito will offer the finger to Camille.
She takes it and suckles on it like a babe to the breast, and you can see the pleasure and happiness in her face as she sucks away.
After Tito believes he's given a satisfactory reward, he'll withdraw his finger and bid Camille a good evening as he leads Mary deeper to Juliet.
Alright. You leave her, and she looks even more longing as she watches you go, and Mary follows in tow as Camille stands there watching you the whole time until you're out of sight. You eventually make your way further in, and you find Juliet back in her chamber.
Tito will step forward and offer Juliet a deep bow as he presents Mary.
She turns. You can see tonight that she's back in her black and white habit, and seeing the two of you, a small smile appears on her lips. Ah, Tito. Good of you to have returned, and with a new guest, I see.
Indeed.
For me,
she is for you. Her name is Mary.
Mary. And she takes a few steps forward and caresses the cheek with her own hand. Wonderful. Thank you for being so considerate of my resources, my child.
But of course, I always make sure to satisfy all debts.
She takes Mary's chin in her palm and guides it back to her face. Come, Mary. Come with me. And her eyes affix Juliet now. And she nods at you with a smile. Juliet does.
And Tito returns the smile. If that is all, my mistress.
Yes, I think Mary and I are going to become better acquainted.
Tito nods at this and prepares to leave.
She guides Mary away, and you leave, the two of them. What does Tito mean to do now, having delivered this little lamb into the clutches of your sire?
For now, Tito will... He still needs more time to think. He'll begin... He'll walk to Elysium.
Alright. You make your way in the direction of Elysium. As you do, we'll switch from here. And we will turn back to Quentin Chamberlain and see how he is doing this evening as he returns to his estate. And Quentin, as you return, you see two things. That it looks like the herd of cattle has been brought into your storehouse, and that a group of men you've never seen before are aligned outside your estate, not being gained entry yet.
Obviously going to go ahead and question them. What is your business here?
I have been sent by Lord Masters to move a number of livestock, I believe.
Indeed.
Very good, sir.
He'll go ahead and gesture for his caretakers or whomever is blocking their entrance to make way and show them where the livestock is being held.
He and a half dozen other individuals similarly dressed, you assume are more ghouls or perhaps attendants, they are led into your estate and shown to the livestock, to the sheep.
And he's going to take one of his own servants aside and say, "Ensure it is only the livestock that departs."
Yes, of course. He nods and departs back towards them. And in no time at all, they're very organized about moving these sheep and leading them out. And before long, they're being herded out of your storehouse and out of your estate in short order.
He'll stop one of the ghouls and hand over a sheet containing his anticoagulant concoction to one of the ghouls. Ensure Mr. Masters receives this. It may help with the preservation process.
Lord Masters will receive this, he says, correcting you and taking it.
Quinn will head on up to the big house. I was actually going to go ahead and I mentioned to you an inference regarding the how the plague seems to speed up in Cainite bodies. How did you want me to go ahead and roll for making that connection?
Do an intelligence enigmas roll. You've only seen really one active case of this. So I'll give you a difficulty of 8 to gain something off of that. Alright. You think to yourself, considering Ford's case, the rapid deterioration and the healing, nothing about that actually stood out to you as suggesting his expenditure of vitae was increasing the pace. He seemed to be deteriorating on the way in. You don't think that him spending more blood made it worse. You think it was just that bad at that point.
Fair enough. Then I'm going to go see to my patient.
You're able to quickly make your way down into the catacombs where you keep your lab supplies, your experiments going, and of course, the cleanse enforcer that you captured and have been testing, who, from all accounts, still seems to be fine, albeit agitated that he is still bound here.
I do apologize for your prolonged quarantine, sir. It is almost at an end. However, tomorrow night, when I see you again, you will have a choice to make.
You can keep me down here, mate. You know who I am, you know who I'm part of.
I know precisely what you're a part of, and that's actually why you're here. You see, you have a choice. You can either choose a life of servitude, helping to aid the citizens of London, or you will never be seen again.
Make a charisma intimidation roll. Difficulty 6. You see the color fade from his face, and his eyes go a little bit wide at that. Look, I didn't mean nothing.
Oh, it's not that. It's simply that I work for an organization which either you're a part of it or you're ignorant of it. So either you can join me in my work, or you can depart this mortal coil.
No, of course, mate. I'll join you. I was just making giggles is all. I didn't mean nothing. I don't even know what I was a part of. I'm not part of it now.
Of course, all this depends on the success of a procedure tomorrow. So I would greatly appreciate your hearty prayers that all goes well.
Sure, mate, of course. I wish you the very best. And he's smiling nervously.
There's a good lad.
He gulps.
Quinn is then going to go ahead and prepare a blood sample for Tristan, just in case he doesn't survive.
Alright. You're able to do that easily enough. This man has shut up entirely in your presence. And before long, you lose a blood point, but gain a vial of your own blood. What does Quinn mean to do now?
There's not much for him to do at the moment. I thought Simon had said he was heading over to check up on me.
That's true. Thinking of the timeline. He would be arriving, but not for another hour or so.
Okay. What would I get up to for an hour? So I wonder, among the things that we've collected, would I have a magnifying glass? Or 3?
I do not believe magnifying glasses exist in 1345.
You would be wrong. I did research on this.
Oh, okay. I know they would be very expensive if they do exist. Let me think.
They're actually 100 years old at this point.
So still very new. Definitely very expensive. I'll say you have 1.
Then I'm going to use this to examine previous blood samples of my own. See if I can't identify exactly what it is that's causing the black marks.
Alright, are you comparing it to anything?
Well, I mean, other than previous samples from myself.
Okay, so you're just looking at different sample, like multiple samples of your own blood. Make a perception medicine roll. Say standard difficulty.
No help there.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but all these samples have been taken after your bite, correct?
Right.
You have noticed, upon looking at this, the blood in each of these containers is getting darker. It's getting blacker.
Can
over
I
time.
see the individual bodies within the blood? Like,
No, it's not powerful enough of a magnifying glass to see that kind of thing.
I need more magnifying glasses.
You just know that it's significantly darker than it was when you first took it.
But I knew that before.
That is to say, it's gotten more dark since then.
Well, yeah, but that's a visual observation I could make without a roll.
Oh, under poor light. Might have looked the same dark. I don't know. Anyway, that's what you get.
Boo.
Yeah. Science has not advanced to the point where you can look at the hemoglobin or the proteins or anything like that.
Boo.
Yep, sorry. 1345. Otherwise, we can, if there's something else he wants to do.
What I want to do is I want to see if I can find a way to create a counter agent rather than just simply doing transfusions, but don't have the means to gather that information to be able to start making the necessary inferences to do what I want to do.
Yeah, I also think that's also really pushing any theories on medicine right now.
Chew willow bark when you have a headache. That's a counter agent.
Anyway, it sounds like you're not going to make much progress on this counteragent tonight, at least.
Doesn't seem like it, no.
I would say that during this time, as you're experimenting and considering what to do next, what to do about this disease, it's around this time that Simon has made his way back. Would Simon know of the catacombs? Did you show him that? Did you show him the...
He'd have seen the door.
Okay. So Simon, by this point, you are just arriving back at the estate. You don't immediately see Quinn, but you suspect he's somewhere on the premises.
And Abel is still with me, yeah?
I thought Abel went somewhere else.
I was under the impression we were heading to Quinn's and then to Vega's.
Okay. Well, then I was wrong. Abel is with you.
Alright, well, Simon will take Abel into his haven. Temporary or not, it's a safe place. This being a cellar. He tells him by way of explanation,
I'm not sure Quinn would like you poking around his home, even with me. I shall return briefly.
Abel will nod and stand in the center of the room where he's left. But probably look around.
Alright. Abel, you're left standing in the center looking around as Simon departs from you.
What sort of room am I standing in?
You've been left in a cellar, so there are... I think Quinn might be able to describe it better than I can, but I believe there are racks of wine, or casks of wine, and other similar items. I forget the description as well.
Casks of wine, root vegetables. It's furniture that's not put out.
So vegetables, we got table and chairs, I think a cot, I think you said that was there.
Yep.
So yeah, it seems like something of a storehouse made into a makeshift home for Simon.
Alright, well, unfortunately nothing seems very interesting. But he will just peer under the cot, just in case.
Simon really doesn't have anything stored under there.
You see nothing.
Then he shall twiddle his thumbs.
Alright. We follow Simon as he's making his way around the estate.
Alright, well, he'll look for Quinn in all the normal places. He might know that the door's there, but he's never been through it. All the while saying his name.
Quinn, where are you?
So, being that he's up and moving, he'd probably leave the door ajar,
You hear Simon.
and he'll come and investigate the calls for his name by a very familiar voice, very distinct voice.
Ah, there you are. Still alive, good.
Such as it is.
I have delivered your package to Tristan.
Gratitude. If you imagined any debt between us, it's absolved.
We shall see before this is done. I now have some matters to attend to. I have brought Abel, one of my clansmen, with me.
Indeed. I appreciate your, well, I hesitate to say concern. A final point of note. I mentioned a sample of my blood. It will be inside these catacombs, on my desk, along with either a gift or a task. I leave it to you to decide which.
Catacombs, you say?
You recall the Klinsman.
I do.
He yet lives. I've given him a choice. Either servant or death. His lips say servant. We'll see. If I don't survive tomorrow, I leave it to you to decide which.
I do so love the hard choices.
Needless to say, the traditions demand he either be fed the blood or disposed of appropriately.
Then if you don't survive, rest assured I will make him my ghoul.
As I hoped.
Very well then, until tomorrow evening.
I wish you well in your endeavors.
I hope not to get myself in too much danger tonight. I save that all for tomorrow.
Hopefully there's very little danger involved for you tomorrow. I'll take that all on myself.
It is the Tremere we're dealing with, remember? And I
Fair.
have had dealings with them before.
Fair point.
All right, with that, Simon is going to go collect Abel. Sorry about the cat. Go collect Abel and head out.
Alright. Abel, you're twiddling your thumbs busily when you are collected by Simon.
That was quick.
Simon, you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here. The cat is going crazy. All right, cat has been released from his fighting. So what was the question? No question. I'm just picking up Abel.
He told
Yeah.
you that was quick.
Okay.
I told you I only needed to tell him something. We may go now.
Do you know where to find Vega?
Tito, do we know where to find you?
You know where his priory is. You've been there.
Depending on timeline, you may not be there.
True. It's getting
I
pretty
know
late in
what-
the night.
Sorry.
That's all I was gonna say.
I know where we can start.
How late in the night is it?
I would say at this point it's almost 3.
And sunrise, I don't know what time of year it is.
Probably a few more hours. It's late fall, let's say 4 hours.
Alright, then Abel is more than comfortable going with Simon to check for Vega.
Alright. I'll spare you all the pain of looking at the priory and then finding no Vega. You eventually deduce that if he's not at the priory, he very well may be at Elysium. And being the intelligent individuals you are, or at least able, you make your way towards Elysium, and we will transition to there. After about, let's say, an hour and a half of running around London. Alright, Tito, you have made it back to Elysium, and you are starting to feel like your head is a bit more clear than it was. You feel a bit at ease, knowing that your sire at least has her herd restored. And so you've returned to Elysium this evening, and you do not see Ellen or Robin, as in your nightmare, although it does pass through your mind at least once. What does Tito mean to do now that he's here?
Well, the thought relieves Tito, but he will wonder who is here and looks around.
See here. Of interest, let's say you see the newly appointed Primogen of the Bruja, Alexander Hitchcock. He's here. Let's see. None of the... There is one gangrel, but one you don't really know much of. His name is Nikolai. You don't really know much about him, except for his name. You've seen him once before. Ellen is not here. None of the Lasombra are here, of what few there are. Let's see. Simone Deschamps of the Malkavian. She is sitting alone in the far corner of the room, watching the crowds intently. You do see Helen at this point in time. She has made her way back. Literally going down the road looking. Genevieve Silvers is here. Marco Vespucci is not. Bella Mattei is here, so is Rebecca Godfrey. And you see that Eleanor Gray has returned to Elysium. This is the first time you've seen her back, and Isaac Lavelle right along with her. The crowd of Toreador and neonates that often follow her have returned and flocked to her return. Let's see here. None of the Tremere Coal Masters is not here. That's everyone that you really know.
Alright, well there's at least 2 Tito sees you would like to talk to. Let's start with Simon, or Simone Deschamps, is that the Malkavian?
Yes. You've had few interactions with her, but you know that she's a bit paranoid and somewhat reclusive, though not to the extent that Muriel or Dr. Fontaine is. She's in here probably the most often of all the Malkavians.
He'll walk up to Simone and greet her.
Her shoulders tense up, and she looks at you, folding her arms across her chest. Can I help you? What is it that you want?
Good evening to you. Yeah, you could help me, but are you so quick to dismiss pleasantries?
Why are you concerned with what pleasantries I do and do not provide? Perhaps I was going to provide them.
Perhaps you were. It seems that opportunity has passed.
She watches you closely.
How was your relationship with Dr. Fontaine?
Make an appearance etiquette roll, difficulty 7. She looks at you with something between disgust and irritation. Why do you want to know about that?
I wish to know more about the doctor. He has gone missing.
He is oft missing. It is not my business to keep up with him or his child. It's not my business at all. Nor yours, I suspect.
No, but it is not often one's haven goes up in flames. I was there, by the way. Not of my own doing, you understand.
Sit down, I would like to hear of this. And she gestures very forcefully to the table beside her.
Tito will take the seat. Well, I was simply searching for a child of Bella.
Make a perception empathy roll, difficulty 6. She blinks once and something flashes across her face, but you're not really sure what it was. She's an odd one to gauge. Go on. You were there at this fire, the one that consumed the home of Muriel?
Yes, I was looking for the doctor and Muriel. She disappeared. As while searching the cellar, discovered the place was set on fire. Inside. Quite a terrifying situation to be, understand.
Well, now you know what my life is like. That fire was meant for me. Fortunate I was not with you, she says, resting her chin on her hand and looking away, almost despondent.
Really?
She nods.
Why, I thought you never associated with the doctor.
Never say never.
Do you? I have a question. Does the doctor often disguise himself?
Edmund has at times exaggerated his means. It's what he's best known for, is lying about what he can do, who he is, what he's been through. It's very frustrating trying to talk to him, you see. she says, looking at you plainly.
How far do these lies go? Surely not his persona as a doctor.
Oh, he was very thorough with them. Very thorough. You know, he only maintained a few identities, but I know that he was quite convinced of some of these facts. He would call them things that he had done and seen and been a part of.
Oh, what were these two or few identities?
Well, I do know that he once attempted to convince the rest of us that he was guard captain for the Tower of London. Had convincing arguments and everything, but could see quite through it.
What was the main thing that gave him away?
I can't hear you. You sound like you're in a well.
What was the main thing that gave him away?
You
Still
could-
can't hear me?
Now I can hear you. The main thing that gave him away was his voice, of course. You can't get past that sound. And she tries to imitate it. Irritating man.
I see. What has his most successful one been?
She thinks, looking off in the distance. That is a good question. I cannot say that any have lasted very long. Captain of the Guard was one of the longer ones. I think the most successful one was that he owned that inn that burned down, that he was the innkeeper. Oh, it wasn't, of course. Marco Vespucci gave that to him.
The inn. Truly.
She nods, plainly looking away again.
Wow, that has been most helpful. It is fortunate that you were not in the inn.
I should say so.
Has he ever been known to disguise himself as any dukes?
Dukes. I wouldn't put it past him. That's quite grand. Though he does have a bit of a flair for the performing arts, so to speak.
I see. Well, thank you. That explains why he's been missing. I'm sure your clansman is quite safe then.
It is neither here nor there. The city might do well without him. Very frustrating man.
I don't know him well enough to make that sort of judgment, but I shall take your word for it.
He just can't hold normal conversation, she says, looking at you. Without one of those identities, I mean. How can you speak to someone if they just can't tell the difference?
Can't even imagine. But you've been most a pleasure to talk to.
Not too much of a pleasure, I hope. And her eyes suddenly narrow at you.
I mean nothing ill, if that's what you are insinuating.
I think you should leave before I dislike you.
Very well. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
She watches you cautiously and with skepticism as you make your way out. And it's around this time that Simon and Abel you are arriving in Elysium. Did you enter obfuscated as you passed through the screen?
Yes.
Alright. So, you see the same scene, and you see that it looks like Tito is departing from Simone de Champ.
Ah, we found him.
Well, Simon, for one, will unobfuscate himself, so that he may approach Tito.
And what is Abel doing at this time?
Abel probably would have come in with his normal mask on, instead of completely obfuscated. And upon seeing Tito, will approach him, especially as he is no longer engaged with this rather attractive woman, I guess.
She is actually relatively attractive despite her very simple appearance and her off-putting gaze. But you see that Tito is free of her for now.
And he shall walk up to Tito.
Ah, Simon. And Tito also gives a respectful nod towards Abel. How fare you two this evening?
Guten Nacht, Herr Vega. The evening has been kind to us. And I hope for you.
Some ups, some downs.
We have reached out to you about a certain text you wanted translated.
Yes, I am working on a text at the moment. I'm quite able to
You
read
found
the
somebody to read it.
language.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I'm quite able to read it. It's just the means of how it was. The words were put together escapes me. It is quite clearly encrypted.
Ah, then you know Greek.
Ah, indeed I do.
A man of many talents. It would seem that our trip here was for naught, then.
Perhaps, perhaps not. I have some information to share.
As do we, as a matter of fact.
Then to end the suspense, I will go first. It seems that the end that belonged to Dr. Fontaine was actually Marco's.
Is that so?
Indeed. That is about the main thing I've learned. I'm quite close to breaking the code on his letters, but decided I need to clear my mind before I continue.
Still a very excellent discovery.
How about you?
The information that we have to share with you is that the Nosferatu have been made aware of Marco Vespucci's eccentricities. Our primogen Tristan has agreed to help us uncover whatever it is he's doing.
Oh, wonderful. I suspect his secrets will not remain so for long.
No, in fact, he wants me to revisit his home as soon as possible. To see if I can get my hand on that ledger we saw. I told him how difficult that would be.
It would be. I have no reason to go again so soon, but I'm sure I can think of something tomorrow night.
Well then, let us think on it a while, shall we?
Yes, and hopefully I can make a breakthrough on this letter. Was that all, though?
One other thing. Under no circumstances must we allow this man to become the Ventru Primogen.
I agree. He's much too suspicious. I had intended to speak with Genevieve Silvers this evening, and seeing that she is here, this has presented a opportune moment.
I'm not a man who knows much of politics, but judging by what Tristan says, it might be best to throw your horses behind Silvers.
I would. Tito takes a moment thinking on the meaning behind that. Yes, I believe I shall speak with her and see what she thinks of Marco.
Please do not mention Tristan's name. Not until we're ready to make our move.
Okay. I shall forgo mentioning his name then. And if that is all, that is what I intend to do next.
Simon will look to Abel to see if he has anything else.
Abel bows his head slightly to Tito. El Vega, a pleasure.
Pleasure as always.
Alright, and with that, Tito, you make your way over to Genevieve Silvers.
Yes.
Alright. You see that she's speaking with Caleb, whom you're very familiar with at this point. And upon seeing you, he actually bows respectfully and dismisses himself as Genevieve Silvers turns to you. Ah, Mr. Vega. What can I do for you this evening?
Good evening, my lady. It is less about what you could do for me and more what I could do for you.
She tilts her head slightly at that.
I've come across some dark secrets of Marco Vespucci. Perhaps we should speak in private.
She looks at you curiously. And I should say for our newer players, give a brief description of Genevieve Silvers. She's somewhat tall but petite. She has this done up, very dark brown hair. It's almost black. And she's very beautiful. Her face is very soft to look at. And she looks like she often goes to great extent to improve her appearance before Elysium. Very much a public face. And she dresses in long, elegant gowns that are of comparable fashion even to Bella Matea. And this evening she has this long black gown on that wraps around the back of her neck. And she looks at you and looks around curiously, but seems to oblige. Very well. And she follows after you.
Upon finding a suitable spot, Tito will break the silence.
You said you had news of my brother through Vitae.
Indeed. But first, I must ask you, does the name Vatic mean anything?
She blinks once. No. Should that name mean something to me?
Truly. I've learned that he apparently was the sire of Prince Adam. Former prince.
Truly. Adam kept his lineage well secret, as did my sire. Well, our sire, she says, correcting herself, looking down.
Is vying for the position of Primogen. Is that something you desire for yourself, I wonder?
Indeed. I make no apology for that, or discretion. I have the experience, I have the leadership, I know what it takes to lead. I think I am in a good position to take up that position again.
Good, because Marco has slighted me with his acceptance of all the credit.
Ah, yes. I had noticed that. I assume you had something to do with it then.
Indeed. Marco was able to offer me the name of a sewer worker and a suggestion of a leper, but all of the work was carried out by me and another I had help.
I see. Well then, a thank you to you, Mr. Vega. Just as bowing her head lightly.
Thank you. It is appreciated to get some recognition. Marco has been very suspicious as of late.
She almost laughs at that. I should say so. Given the last few years.
Last few years, has he made any sudden changes?
Yes, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the events of our sire, Reynaldo Francisco, his death, and Marco being there for the exchange of it all with that Assamite. Ever since then, he's been very distant from the Ventru. And myself. Very distrusting, I've sensed.
Well, in my investigations into the plague and the cleanse, I've discovered that there are some who enjoy masquerading. Namely the doctor.
Also, make an intelligence enigmas roll, standard difficulty, because this is the first time I think Tito has heard the name of their sire. And it might connect something for him.
What difficulty?
Standard. Hey, you didn't botch for once. You, upon hearing that name, Reynaldo Francisco, you recall that when Leviticus told you this story about Vatic and his two children, Priam and Hector, that they reappeared in the British Isles centuries later. Priam went by the name Adam, and Hector went by the name Reynaldo Francisco. This is a connection you make as she mentions this. I don't think otherwise has ever been mentioned.
Noted. I speak of the Dr. Fontaine. Apparently he has gained some favor with Marco.
Oh? Is that so?
Indeed, the haven that burned down belonged to Marco at one point before it was given.
Interesting. I did not know of this. Although there is much I found I do not know of my brother these nights.
Indeed. He also delivered to me the leader of the cleanse.
Indeed. That is interesting. How did he go about that?
All too easily, I must add. He had me take his seal to the Duke.
Duke of Cornwall? Lord Marshal Emerson?
Yes. And there, the Duke was able to completely cow the bishop and hand over the leader of the cleanse into my hands without a fight.
The Bishop of London.
Yes.
I knew Marco had some clout with some of the aristocracy and nobility. I did not know he had such sway over the nobles as to accomplish these things. This is on the level that only Adam had that I knew of.
He has been very busy. And his activities have drawn suspicion from me. I've had him investigated, and what I found is quite troubling.
What have you found? She says, now looking, she's very much, peering in and what am I looking for? Now I'm having a brain fart. She's leaning forward and looking intently. You've very much got her attention.
Yes. Inside his very own haven, where he sleeps, it is filled with a reddish clay.
Reddish clay.
Yes, and he is also taken to growing various fungi.
Her eyebrows furrow in confusion. It's an odd hobby to take up. Where would he even find red clay?
That I do not know, nor why he would choose to sleep in it.
Sleep in it?
Yes, this is where his bed chambers were.
No, that cannot be. When Marco and I did spend time together, he had the most luxurious of bed chambers arranged for him.
Oh no, his estate is quite luxurious, but this was hidden behind closed doors.
He would not sleep in the dirt. My brother would not. And she shakes her head. At least he wouldn't in the past.
With what you told me, I suspect, especially with the reputation of Dr. Fontaine, is someone has taken his identity, perhaps, with what you've told me. That is the conclusion I've drawn up.
She stares at you wide-eyed. That is a most serious accusation to make, Mr. Vega. Even
It
if I
is.
do not agree with my brother, I find him eccentric and distrusting, but that is a heavy remark.
I do not make this lightly, and more evidence will be needed, of course. This is the most likely scenario, I believe.
This is very troubling, Mr. Vega. I would not share this news widely.
I will not, as of yet. This is why I've given you a advanced notice.
I thank you for this advance notice. And your discretion, of course.
Of course, I think it would be best for your clan to solve this. I am free to offer any assistance, of course.
You have been publicly seen in his company in the past. He seems to have taken kindly to you for some reason, after having been estranged from so many of the Ventru. For whatever reason, he seems to wish for your attention. Perhaps you might use that.
There will be other opportunities, I'm sure. What did you have in mind?
I mean only that you stay in his good graces. The accusation you make is serious, and not impossible, she says, looking almost exasperated. If there is any possibility of that being true, you may be best poised to discover it. Of all Cainites.
You're entirely correct. I'm sure I can wholeheartedly count on any assistance from when that time comes.
Of course, if there's any credence to this, you have my and the Ventru's full support. I have great sway among us still.
Wonderful. Before I go, I did want to engage your reaction on the one who holds your previous title now, Chamberlain.
Robin Oliver. I mean no disrespect, of course. But he has spent his time at the game, at the Jihad. I've seen him in here, building, biding his time, accruing favors and influence. I suspect that was the culmination of several individuals speaking on his behalf. I cannot say to hate him for taking that. I do not think it was mine for long after Adam's fall. He successfully played the game. He got what he wanted. She says, folding her arms.
Most unfortunate. He is not my favorite brother.
Well, in any case, if I have my way, I won't be needing Chamberlain if I can attain Primogen. Perhaps you may be a voice in my favor in that regard, should I need you in the future.
Of course.
In the meantime, keep the rest of this under key and lock, yes?
Yes. I shall keep in touch with you. It is probably best we do not be seen in public after this meeting.
She nods. Yes. Very good. If that is all, I'll be away.
Yes, of the good evening for the rest of it, at least.
She
Must be
nods.
up.
Go ahead.
Oh, just I must be off as well.
She curtsies lightly before turning to leave.
After she leaves, Tito will look for Simon and Abel.
Are Simon and Abel still in the area? We'll start with Simon. What did Simon do after departing from Tito?
I hadn't actually thought that far ahead, so we'll say that he stayed. Doing his normal trick that he does in Elysium, which is sort of lean against a post and relax.
And Abel, what did he end up doing after having parted?
Abel probably would have set up some sort of rendezvous for the next night with Simon and then departed.
Right. So Abel is gone, but Simon you see, and you've arranged for your next meeting, of course, but you see that it looks like Tito's done speaking with Genevieve Silvers as she curtsies and leaves.
And he approaches then.
I'll leave the scene to the two of you. If Simon is visible, then that's up to Tito.
No, Tito will walk up and greet Simon.
Simon greets him and then says,
That went well. I couldn't hear what you were saying, but she didn't slap you.
Went well indeed. In the investigation of Marco, we have the full support of the Ventru.
Well then, should there be anything foul going on, I'm sure we'll uncover it soon enough.
We will. That, I can assure you, is much too suspicious to not be. But for now, I plan on returning and finishing deciphering this message. We should meet tomorrow. Perhaps I will have a way into Marco's residence again, and you will have a chance to swipe his ledger.
Tomorrow evening, unfortunately, I will be indisposed.
Oh?
I must assist Quinn with a very important task. And then I have a meeting with Abel to attend.
And none came to me for assistance. Ah, alas.
In this case, you must trust me. You would not want to be involved.
After what we went through with Galford, fully trust your word on that.
If all goes well, it should only take tomorrow. In which case, any other night would be fine.
Very well. We'll see what tomorrow brings, especially with these letters. Perhaps the next evening.
Good. Then the hour grows late and I must get back to my new haven.
And I must return as well. I bid you a good evening, Simon. We have much work ahead of us.
Yes. Good night.
Tito will leave Elysium, fully intent on doing what he said.
and Simon will obfuscate himself and leave as well.
All right. The two of you make your way back to your havens for the remainder of the night. And we'll I'll have Tito, you can make your one more roll for the night. Since you've cleared your head, you can make one more roll on your deciphering of the code.
To willpower or not? That is the question.
Only one away. What will Tito do?
I have faith in the dice. Come on, dice, don't kill me.
I'm gonna be sad for you if you botch. So I think I would have to do something else if you botch a third time. Hey, did it. So as you get back, you have a clearer mind, and you are able to get the last of this Greek transcribed. You have the full message in front of you, and you will have to wait until next time to find out what it says.
Cliffhanger.
I love doing that. Get my kicks as a storyteller.
The sword of Damocles falls ever closer.
Yep.